was all ready to get to like the business at hand. Forgive me. All right. Well, and since we missed Kevin already, he has to do both.
Thank you. Well, let us bow our heads. Thank you, Lord, for this day we've never seen before. We'll never see it again. And please give us guidance to make sure we do all the right decisions on behalf of the residents of Miami-Dade County. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Attorney, we'll get to the business at hand. We'll open the reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard.
Now would be the time for that.
Thank you very much. I only have one card. Michael Bilbao. Oh, Michelle Bilbao, sorry. Sorry, Michelle. Your name and address for the record, please.
Michelle Bilbao with Clear Channel Outdoor, 5800 Northwest 77th Court, Miami, Florida, 33166. Let me see if this works. Maybe not.
Are you going to do a presentation? Because we can do it when the item actually comes up.
Okay.
That'd probably be better. Yes, probably be better? Yes.
that's fine.
All right. So no worries. We'll just call you up when the item is up. That way we don't confuse folks. All right. Thank you, Michelle. All right. You want to come on down? If anybody else wants to speak.
Either one?
Yeah, either one. Just your name and address for the record. Thank you for coming.
Hello, my name is Leonardo Bertoli, 1111 Crandon Boulevard, and I'm here to talk about the issues with the vending machine contract EVN 0003886. There's been multiple issues with this contract, and we've been trying to reach the staff. The staff has reached out to RQ Vending, which is the water vendor, but there seem to be no reaction to this. And the reaction that there is anything but deceiving to the county, which in my opinion, is insulting to the county staff. To just put matter into perspective, they're telling county staff that this potato chip right here, it's the same price as this potato chip right here. And like that, many other examples, which it might be for some people not that big of a difference, but in our industry it is. We feel cheated as an industry leader, and also other issues has been the ADA compliance in vending machines, that they're not complying with ADA requirements for the machines. And issues such as charging 10 cents additional for vending machines, having all equipment, not having fully been deployed after 4 months of contract award. Payments are not being made for the month of November and December. And the list goes on of least important items. These are the ones that really matter to the county, because the county is a liability when they don't have ADA compliant equipment. And also the county is losing money by not having the right pricing. And the reason why I say the county is losing money, because even though RQ Vending offer 52%, with the higher pricing, which is outrageously high, they're paying less than half of what the previous company used to pay on a flat fee. So the county is losing money.
Thank you. Well, we'll have staff, if you can stick around, and we'll have staff reach out and see what we can figure out. I don't think there's nothing on the agenda right now, but noted, and we'll have someone speak to you. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on an item? Going once, going twice? We're going to close public hearing. And now we'll go to the setting of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I'll move the setting of the agenda. I just have a quick question.
Yes.
For clarification, I saw item 3E was withdrawn by a sponsor, and I just wanted to ask Water and Sewer if there would be any sort of negative impact with this item being withdrawn.
Roy, do you
I know
want
it came from the department.
Okay. Amanda?
For the record, Amanda Kinnick, Interim Director of Water and Sewer Department. Thank you for the question, Commissioner. The item that was withdrew was an interlocal agreement between North Miami Beach and Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department. It provided two things. One, an emergency connection between the two utilities. Historically, this has been utilized if either one of us are doing maintenance projects, and so we can buy water from the other utility. And then second, in portions of the county, the North Miami Beach utility is the water utility in the area, and Miami-Dade Water and Sewer is the sewer utility in the area. So the city bills on behalf of the county for the sewer portion of the bill. So we do need this interlocal agreement to continue, and by not moving forward, it could jeopardize the interlocal agreement between the two utilities.
Thank you. I guess I'll speak to you offline then, because it's.
Yeah, it's withdrawn, so there's really not much that we can do. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. So we'll deal with that. It is what it is. Does anyone want to pull any of the items? Obviously, we're going to go through the ordinances, and we have some presentations, but does anyone have any other issues with any of the other items? Yes, Commissioner Higgins?
Yeah, on 1G2, I think we've probably finished the public hearing on that. I just have a friendly amendment when we get to the time of that. I don't know if we need to do that before or after setting an agenda.
Yeah, we'll take the public hearing items
Okay.
after the setting of the
Okay.
agenda. I'm just asking if anyone wants to pull anything that is not a G. Okay, everybody good? All right, with that, we have a motion to set the agenda. Can I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Madam Chair?
Aye. Any against?
I just need to note for the record that the official agenda also includes a fiscal impact statement for item 1G2 substitute.
Thank you. Yes, we're going to get to those now. All right, and with that, we will get to the public hearing items. Mr. Attorney, if you could please read 1G1.
1G1, ordinance relating to zoning in the incorporated and unincorporated areas, amending sections 3384 and 33107 of the Code of Miami-Dade County, Florida, revising definitions for certain Class C sign structures, revising regulations pertaining to poster board replacements for nonconforming billboards, making technical changes, providing severability, inclusion in the code, and an effective date. That's 1G1.
Thank you. All right, 1G1, and I know that I want to thank Commissioner Bermudez for being here for his item. We really appreciate that. And Michelle, now you're on. You can do your presentation. How much time do you need?
I think I can do it under 7 minutes.
That would be great. If you could do it under 5, that would be even better. So name and address for the record.
Michelle Bilbao with Clear Channel Outdoor, 5800 Northwest 77th Court, Miami, Florida, 33166.
Thank you.
So again, it's in reference in 1G1. Good morning, Madam Chair, honorable committee members. To start off, I would like to give you a very brief timeline or history of what brought us here today. So the ordinance 22-152 was adopted on November 15th of 2022. This allowed for the replacement of legally non-conforming billboards with smaller, less obtrusive poster boards. Just as a reference, a billboard is 14 feet by 48 feet. A poster board that we're proposing is 12 feet by 24 feet, so it's almost half. So the proposed ordinance for today amends Section 3384 and 33107 of the Miami-Dade County Code pertaining to Class C structures. It revises the definition of a poster board to increase the height from 10 feet to 12 feet. 12 feet is the industry standard. I think this was an oversight when the commission, when the ordinance was passed in 22. We're simply going to revise it, correct it from 10 feet to 12 feet. The proposed ordinance also expands placement options for replacement posters. Under the current ordinance, replacement poster boards are limited to 600 feet of the nonconforming billboard being removed. With the proposed ordinance, if no permissible zoning districts exist within those 600 feet, the replacement poster boards can be sited further away to a conforming zoning district. So when the ordinance was passed in 2022, the main priority was an effort to assist Miami-Dade County to remove these non-conforming boards that are unsightly or improperly placed that are currently throughout Miami-Dade County. Many of these boards were built 30, 40 years ago. They've been grandfathered in. There is no reason nor incentive to remove them because they are legally permissible. However, since the ordinance was passed in 2022, not a single non-conforming billboard has been able to be removed. The ordinance before you today hopefully gives that solution so that the industry can go ahead and start removing these non-conforming billboards. So after studying several non-conforming billboards and trying to find viable replacement locations for the poster boards, we found we were not able to. And the main solution we found was that in this ordinance, we are asking to remove those 600 feet requirements from the non-conforming billboard being removed. I'm going to show you two examples why this 600 feet does not work, and the main reason why no one in the industry has been able to take advantage of this ordinance to remove these billboards. So there's three main components or conditions that are going to make a billboard non-conforming. In the slide above, you're going to see a billboard that is obviously completely surrounded by residential. So the most obvious zoning, the most obvious problem or condition is zoning and staying within the zoning districts. Billboards can only exist, and really should only exist, in commercial and industrial zoning districts. But that billboard before you now clearly is ill-placed in a residential neighborhood. So on the next slide on the left, I don't know if you can see the little yellow peg, but in the center of it, that is where this billboard is placed. And you look, and it's completely surrounded by residential. On the right, we have the zoning districts. The billboard is in the trapezoid triangular red property. And when we tried to go either 600 feet in either direction, we could not. We were still within a residential zoning district. Therefore, we cannot take this billboard down, or we don't have to. So another common non-conforming condition is a rooftop billboard, as seen in this slide. I'm sure many of you will recognize it. It's in practically on Bird Road and 87th Avenue. It's the little yellow peg to the right. Once again, we're looking at a commercial area. It looks like this billboard is rightfully placed. However, when we go to remove this rooftop billboard, if we go to the right, we are still within another non-conforming condition, which is billboards cannot be in an urban area district. And if we go then to the left or to the west, we do have an opportunity. We can go to BU 1A. However, that is 850 feet away. So two examples, which is why we're coming here today with the solution, and we're hoping this committee will consider this ordinance so that we can finally effectuate the county and this board's policy to remove the non-conforming billboards.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. And so really quickly, I appreciate the historical perspective. Obviously, this would be the third amendment, to this ordinance as we try to make these non-conforming conforming. Commissioner, do you want to speak on the item really quickly before we take questions?
Yeah.
Or do you want to wait till the end? Whatever you like.
Well, let me just say, I wanted just a couple of things that are very important is, I think that, because there's confusion sometimes when we talk about billboards, that we're just talking always about proliferation of billboards, which is not the case in this, and this doesn't promote the proliferation of billboards. So it's really a one-for-one replacement of non-conforming poster boards, older ones, and I think Michelle showed a couple of examples that have probably been around for a while. I don't know per se, but I'm going to assume they've been around for a long time. And, you saw in some of those pictures residential neighborhoods on top of buildings. What this item would do is allow one-for-one replacement of a non-conforming poster board to another location that is conforming when the owner of the poster board cannot apply the 600-foot requirement in those two examples. A public hearing would still be required. Obviously, if the location for the replacement poster board is opposite residential zoning. And I know there may be some concerns by some municipalities. It has still to be in a conforming location in the same municipality. So, the mayor, but I think staff supportive of this item, because really it does balance the modernization with the need to mitigate visual impacts, which is what we don't want when you're encroaching on residential areas. So it's a little bit of a correction to I call it a glitch. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but it makes it very difficult to deal with these non-conforming, grandfathered in poster boards the way it exists now, which is why we're having this proposal to correct it, and I think it's a win-win for all.
Wonderful. In terms of the item, I just have a few recommendations, but does anyone have any questions or concerns on this item? Yes, Commissioner Hagan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation, because reading over the item, it was not entirely clear to me. So I do appreciate that presentation providing greater clarification, but explain to me why the need to increase the size from the 10 to 12 feet. What does that remedy and what problem does that solve?
It's simply because these are going to be digital billboards, and the industry standard, there is no 10-foot by 24-foot. It's a technicality. It's really a 12-foot by a 24-foot. So it just does not exist in LED of that, size.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Steinberg.
So first, Commissioner Bermudez, I know you're coming at this with a really good intention, and I think that there are a lot of good things in this ordinance. For instance, and I wasn't here, but I know two of my colleagues were here for the November 2022 sign ordinance, and I'm sure that was a lot of fun for you all. But now that this is in front of us, I know there's some things that were done in 2022 that I actually don't agree with, and this actually remedies some of that. But generally, as a rule, I think this does, and I think it has a good intent, but I do think there's some unintended consequences, and so I'm not comfortable today supporting it. I think that you have an issue where now, but you brought up a good point. You're increasing from 10 feet to 12 feet, which will allow for LEDs, and I'm not clear right now what can and cannot be done, or how many applications have come in, and what the enforcement looks like when we have, illegal signs everywhere. We just have an issue, and in my district, I can speak for proliferation that I'm trying to go the other way on. So while I think you guys are trying to do good, I can't today support it because I still think there's some things in this ordinance that make me uneasy.
All right. I have a few amendments that I wanted to proffer. Thought they were going to pass them out, but I could just do it on the fly here. I think the first one that I think is important when I read the item was that the conforming stay within the commission district, right? So we're expanding and I understand you have a limitation with the 600 feet, right? But I really think it needs to stay within the commission district, because what you don't want is you don't want to port it all over Miami-Dade County, right? Like I think you're going to get 12 of those comments. So I think that's an easy one. And then I think that there should be a time, right? How much time do you have to remedy some of this stuff? Because obviously we do our redistricting every 10 years. So there should probably be a bit of a moratorium on this as you get close to redistricting, because the districts change, right? And the signs should stay within the commission district. So that's just basic stuff that I think is easy for everyone to grasp. I don't know if anyone has a problem with that, or if you have a problem with that.
No, I think both of those are fine. I mean, the concepts are, within the district, which is fine, and coming into redistricting, things can change. We want to make sure that.
Right. The only other thing that I would then proffer is if the proposed site is outside of the district, then I think it needs to come to this board. So you could see a world where, and I think at that point, it should be separate and apart from this ordinance. I don't want this ordinance to make that easier or make that possible. I think that that's a decision that needs to be made on an item by item basis. So I don't know, when I looked at the map, I don't know if there's certain issues that you would have. I think our commission districts are pretty big, but I don't know if you want to contemplate that, or if you just want to leave it there and say it's either in the commission district or it's done. Or if you want it to come back?
I don't have a problem with it coming back in front of the board if it's not in the district. That, you know, it doesn't, I think the intent is going to be, I would presume, and the two examples that were given, in this case by Clear Channel, but it might apply to others, it would be, probably they're going to try to find it right within the district. That would be my guess. But I mean, at the end of the Board of County Commissioners decides, I'm fine with that too, if it's outside, if for some reason they find another site outside of the district.
Okay, and then my last comment, not to belabor this point, but I think that there should be a timeline on the tear down of the non-conforming, right? So whenever you find a location for the conforming and you get your permit, you should have a time. You shouldn't run the two of them, right? Because you could also see a world where that would happen, right? I come from the city of Miami. We know a lot about billboards and murals. So I think that, 60 days, I think that that's reasonable, right? For when you get the permit for the new location, you have 60 days to completely tear down the non-conforming. Is that reasonable?
I think that's, yeah.
Okay, so those are my only just kind of nuts and bolts types of things, just so, I think, I think it's with the best of intentions. Obviously, we don't want these non-conforming billboards, but I think it's also important to kind of create those boundaries around this thing.
Yeah, I'm fine with all of them, the friendly amendments, whatever you want to call it, I'm fine. I mean, look, I think the intent here again is to, it's not necessarily to proliferate, and I wasn't here for that discussion. I think some of us got here right after. And I might have been on the side of those who didn't want proliferation at that time. But this is not what this is about. This is about trying just to, and I use the word glitch. I probably said you shouldn't use the word glitch. It's a
It's a cleanup.
It's
a cleanup item.
because of the industry standards.
Yeah, it's a cleanup item. All right, Commissioner Higgins?
Yeah, just, one comment on the record. If I lived near where these were, I would rather have a non-conforming paper billboard than a conforming light and sound show. And of course, Commissioner Hardiman's not here, but he and I are the most victimized by these outrageous, oversized billboards that are proliferating, many of which have been in unsolicited proposals and had all kinds of drama, including the argument with the Arst Center. So I caution all of you. I'm comfortable now that there's no chance any of these can come. I mean, I don't want it coming back to the board if they're going to move commission districts. Like, you just stick with your commission district, because there's no place that tends to be more victimized than District 5 on that. And I realize that digital billboards are popular and you guys make money off them, but we don't make money off you making money off of them. So I just be careful what we wish for here. I'd rather have that one billboard on top of, a shop, not making a heck of a lot of noise and keeping people up at night. Because just because it's a block away, I don't know if anybody's seen that monstrosity that the PAM put up, but you can see it from outer space. We have people that live almost a mile and a half away on Brickell Key, and they can't have their windows open while they're, they have to have the shades down. So there are digital billboards, and then there are digital billboards, which are quite frankly a blight on the community and residential areas. So those are my, I voted against everything that had to do with those billboards in 2022 because I just don't trust what happens near residential communities, and our community is changing, right? Our sign code is all about protecting somebody's single-family home. Well, we don't have the bulk of our population living in single-family homes, right? That is the exception, not the rule in our community. And because multifamily dwellings are classified often as, multi-use, they're not exempt and they're not protected from this. So just, I speak out of caution. And again, another thing I voted against, this board prior to any of you being on, abdicated its responsibility for sign and gave that control to the city of Miami which is why the city of Miami is in the shape it is, because this board is more cautious and has always been more cautious and has always protected the rights of residents over the rights of, I guess, sparkly signs. But we voted against that, and, I think I was the lone vote trying to stop that. So this will not really affect the city of Miami, but just be careful what you're asking for here. I guarantee you move a billboard 2 blocks away in your district, your folks are much happy sleeping in the dark sky night and looking at stars and peacefulness than having a light and sound show. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Higgins. I would only add to that obviously the city of Miami opted out of Lady Bird. We won't get into that, but if you ever want, if you ever want to know the differences, it is a federal law. So with that, does anyone have any other issues? Yes, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Higgins, for those remarks. When I asked you about the sign change in size, you indicated that it's just not industry standard, they don't exist. But when was it that this ordinance was passed? Was that 10 feet requirement implemented in 2022, or was that built in way before 2022?
No, again, it's always been a 12-foot by 24-foot poster board size. Again, it was an oversight.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
just
it
never existed. A 10-foot never really existed of 10 by 24.
Okay, so I guess here's my concern, and I think I was pretty sure that I was here in 2022 when the discussion took place, and I'm going to go back and take a look and make sure that the 10 feet wasn't something that was negotiated, right? Like if this was placed in the ordinance as a result of people coming out and saying that that's a size requirement that makes me feel comfortable, that's one thing. If it's simply a tiny shift as a result of typographical error, that's a different thing, right? Because it is a cleanup item, but you are also making them bigger by 2 additional feet, and you're adding lumens to Commissioner Higgins' concern. So I'm going to watch the tape and confirm what you're saying, and I appreciate you making that remark. But my thought was, if this was passed just a couple of years ago, why weren't the industry standards taken into consideration then? But I understand what you're saying. It was included in that way as an error, correct?
Correct. And if I may just speak to Commissioner Steinberg's comment about, how many applications. 2.5 years, 2022, we wanted to help clean up, as you're saying. No one, not Clear Channel, not any of our industry partners, has been able to. There's not a single application currently in the county, which is why we thought, what went wrong? Why haven't we been able to effectuate this? So now we are at that point where we can. And then, Commissioner Higgins, to your point, yes, LEDs, the sizes that are now being introduced, this is all about, like everything, the proper positioning, placing, and keeping to a standard. Those are not the standards. So that's why these are 12 by 24. These are half what you see on the highways, because we do understand that there's a scale involved when you're coming to a local street. And I absolutely agree that it should not be anywhere near residential, which is why the 600 feet doesn't work. We want to put them far away from residential. And to do that, you need to be farther than 600 feet. You need to find the appropriate location in a commercial zone district. So we agree with you that it has to be properly placed. And there's also, by the way, other requirements that need to be, the billboards have to be placed a certain distance from residential. The county also has different requirements in terms of height. So the county is taking care of those logistics. And I'm hoping that you'll understand that without this change, those billboards are going to stay up. And lastly, the digital billboards do have a place in this community and as a service tool. Right now, after Hurricane Milton, we were able to provide emergency management service that actually helped, and we were the only ones that were staying live throughout the hurricane, that was giving direction and information to those that were frantically trying to get out. Everything has its place and its moment. I agree with you.
All right, folks, so let's wrap it up. Anybody have anything else?
I just want to say that obviously my colleagues' concerns are all valid, and hopefully, some of the language in there, including Commissioner Higgins' Section 8 for properties within a municipality, Obviously, it's going to be at the discretion of the municipality, so technically, I guess, the city of Miami could, at its, take advantage of what we are trying to do here. Hopefully, that'll be what they'll do as opposed to simply ignore it. So, the intent is for municipalities to also be consistent with us as much as we can, and keep it away from residential areas, which is the whole purpose.
Happy to move your item, Commissioner Bermudez,
As amended.
as amended.
Thank you. I'll second all
Madam
those.
Chair?
Yes,
Could we just restate the amendments just for
Sure.
the record? So the amendments that we had jotted down were a requirement that the replacement poster board be located within the same commission district as the one to be removed, that there would be a 60-day timeline for the tear down of the original billboard after the replacement poster board receives a permit, that, and I was not sure if I heard the rest of the discussion, in terms of if the replacement poster board is to be located outside of the commission district, that it would be a variance that would require a public hearing before the county commission, and then that there would be a time limit considering redistricting.
a
Madam,
moratorium, like as we go through the redistricting process, so that in the time that we're doing the redistricting, they don't land somewhere else.
Madam Chair, there may be multiple ways to do it, and we may want to discuss with your office. One way to do that would be to have this ordinance sunset within a certain amount of time before redistricting, and then it could be readopted by the Board of County Commissioners, but there may be additional options. I'm not,
I was just thinking that for a year, like for one calendar year while we do redistricting, from when we get the census to when we're finished, it would just, you couldn't really move anything.
Yeah,
And it's the easiest one.
right. It would be during the process of, maybe we put the language during whenever redistricting begins to redistricting finishes.
Finishes,
There could
right.
be no applications under this particular ordinance during that time period. I think the chairwoman's concern, which is a valid one, is, you could have you're in the middle of the process and it ends up in somebody else's district and they don't have a say.
Right.
I don't know what the clock is. It would probably be, 29 to 30 or 30 to 31?
It's 30 to 31.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because there has to be, we're limited to the time we can do the redistricting, right? It starts at one point, it ends at another. So we would know what it would be.
Commissioner, I believe you're right. I think we could discuss with our colleagues who work on redistricting to, draft that language.
Perfect, thank you.
More precisely than what I said.
Perfect. All right, with that, all those in favor say aye.
Commissioner, we need a
Oh, it's
roll
an
call.
ordinance, right, we gotta go around, sorry. Meanwhile, I passed out cornbread because the last 2 Saturdays, my district has been cooking. We did, Saturday before last, we did Kibiskin rib-off. This Saturday, we did Pinecrest chili cook-off. For those of you who missed it, I made cornbread, so I decided to make cornbread for you all since I've been cooking cornbread for 2 weeks. Quite the little expert these days. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Cabrera? Commissioner Cohen-Higgins?
4.
Commissioner Steinberg? Sorry. Vice Chairwoman Higgins? Chairwoman Regalado?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. Mr. Attorney, we just had an item walked on. If you can walk us through it? No
Yes,
pun
Madam Chair.
intended.
Item 3F was walked on, and therefore the reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard would need to be reopened as to that item.
Let's do that. So we'll reopen the public's opportunity to be heard on this item. Does anyone want to speak on this? All right. Going once, going twice, closed. Reasonable opportunity to be heard.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we need to read the title for.
Read the title. Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, but.
Let's see.
Okay. It's a resolution approving amendments to 3 non-exclusive professional services agreements for the Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department related to the ocean outfall legislation with 1, Jacobs Engineering Group, Inc., agreement number 14CH2M006, which adds $47 million to the contract award and 4 years to the contract's term. 2, CDM Smith, Inc., agreement number 17CDMSI001, which adds $5 million to the contract award. And 3, Brown and Caldwell Corporation, agreement number 17BRCA005, which adds $5 million to the contract award, authorizing the county mayor to execute the same and to exercise the provisions contained therein. That's item 3F, walk on.
Thank you. So the reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard is open. If anyone wants to speak on that item, please come on down. All right, seeing none, we will close the reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard. I think the administration has a presentation on this item.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Roy.
Can we cue up the presentation, please?
Oh, ready to go.
Okay, Madam Chair, for the record, I'm Roy Coley. I'm the Chief Utilities and Regulatory Services Officer, and my presentation for you today is to give you a status update on the ocean outfall legislation program here in Miami-Dade County. Next, please. 3 primary requirements of the ocean outfall legislation was the obvious to reduce the usage of ocean outfalls for treated wastewater. The others are to have specific reduction in nutrient discharges. And then the third component is to reuse 60% of Miami-Dade County's base flow at that time that the law passed, which is roughly just over 100 million gallons. Next. So what's before you is a timeline to show you where we are today and where we started and where we are. You can see in 2008 that the legislature passed this law. In 2013, Miami-Dade County submitted to FDEP their plan for how they would comply with the law. And then in 2014, entered into contract with Jacobs Engineering to be the program manager and the project oversight. In 2017 is when Jacobs submitted their compliance plan of how they would achieve all of the goals of 2013's Miami-Dade County strategy. Then in 2019, here's an important date that we'll talk about in future slides. In 2019, Miami-Dade County revised its compliance plan and changed directions somewhat. Today, we're about 34% complete on the overall program. Next. The 2013, there's just a few key components that to understand of the 2013 plan. The 2013 plan included building a new wastewater treatment plant in the West District. And so there was much effort into acquiring properties, siting the plant, planning, and developing the preliminary documents to build a new plant. And then also building some additional pipelines and pump stations. Next. Then what happened in 2019 when the policy was changed, it was changed not to build that plant, to stop design work, stop planning, stop acquisition on that plant, and then to cease the work that had begun on building new pipelines and pump stations that would take waste from our existing plants out to the new to be built wastewater plant. Next. What you can see here in this graph just shows you how the department has accelerated its overall CIP program. You can see in the last few years we've done many times more than usual in executed work, and then what you see going forward are the blue bars to show you how much we need to do if we're going to achieve compliance in our CIP program. Next. This shows you in ocean outfall alone how we have increased investment in ocean outfall. You see in the last 3 years the amount invested has been much more than in all previous years as this administration has accelerated every project. Next. So to give you a status of exactly where we are, on nutrient diversion, you can see we had 2 components, nitrogen and phosphorus. We've achieved compliance on phosphorus and we're at 80% on nitrogen. you can see on the effluent disposal, which is the ocean outfalls, we're 34% complete. And then on our reuse system, we're going to talk a little bit more about reuse on the next slide, but you can see we've added additional reuse plans. Next, please. Here's how the reuse will actually work. In this graphic, you see where treated wastewater, you see in the purple line, goes to an energy recovery area, and the water then goes over and cools industrial equipment in the process, and then the water is returned back to the energy recovery before final disposal. Next. So in the reuse timeline, there's a very important thing to understand. Of course, the legislation passed in 2008, but in 2021, when this administration took over this job, only 15 million gallons a day of wastewater reuse was committed to do. Quite simply, the county had no plan for compliance of the reuse. You might wonder what the ramifications of that are, as the law that passed was silent on what the ramifications to the county would be if we didn't comply. But the reality is, for example, last year when various members of this body and the mayor's office were in Tallahassee advocating for funding for many things, from bay funding, infrastructure funding, transportation funding, there were elected officials in Tallahassee that responded that if Miami-Dade County was not in compliance with ocean outfall, why would they give Miami-Dade County money for anything? And in response to that, I went to Tallahassee last year and gave this presentation to about 15 different members of the legislature. And what was the thing I wanted them to understand, in 2023, we developed a additional plan for reuse, and that was this industrial reuse that I just described to you. That will be more than 100 million gallons a day of industrial reuse. And so we intend for all of that to be fully under construction in 2026, and that would get us through the reuse requirements. Next, please. So these are just, I'm not going to go over each one of these. This just gives an idea of work that has to be completed, that our partners at the engineering firms that are leading these programs, this is the work they have to do. Next, please. And of course, you see the benefits to the county by continuing to use these same partners that have been with the county since the program began and have the most knowledge of the program, and that is why we support the existing contract holders to be extended to finish the work. Next, please. That's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the vendors are here. The engineers are here, that if you have any questions of them, they're sitting on the front row prepared to answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy. And just really quickly, Roy mentioned some of the highlights. This item is so important, and staff has been working on it for a very long time. And as he mentioned, our partners in Tallahassee are always asking us about it. Since February of 2021, that I've been chair of infrastructure, we've actually moved the pace of this program by 400%. So we really have been trying to get these items done. And if you look through the item and through the capital plan, you'll see that all the construction projects are set to be initiated by the end of 2025. So this is not something that we're not doing immediately. And the numbers are very important. We're talking about 63 million pounds of nutrients, specifically nitrogen and phosphorus, right, that we're entering our ocean. And as Roy mentioned, the reuse goal is 60%. We can get into the cost savings. Whenever we work on anything in the county, look, things get delayed. This is no exception of that. But in this case, I think that the administration and the department has really made the most of that delay by finding other options that led to some changes. And some of those options are much better than what was first presented to this board. They're a lot cheaper and they're better for the environment. So this is one of those situations where the delay might actually have worked in favor of the taxpayers, as bizarre as that sounds. But specifically, the wastewater treatment, changes that we've made with FPL and the cooling of Turkey Point. I mean, I think these are amazing projects that were never contemplated as something that this county could have done when this was first brought up by the state in 15 and 16. And then obviously we can get into the specifics of the water reuse and the cooling towers and all that kind of stuff. But we just want to take the opportunity to have staff here and to have the contractors here in case anyone had any questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes?
Yeah, Roy, thank you very much for bringing this item. I think we've all been waiting for this for a long time, and I do want to compliment you. The amount of progress that has been made on ocean outflow since your arrival. I know you're in a different job now, but when you were specifically tasked with figuring out what we need to be doing for all of our water and sewer department, you've really accelerated this. It's clear from the graph. And I can tell you one of the reasons I'm happiest that Marco Rubio is now our Secretary of State is I no longer have to sit in his office every time I visit him and have to explain ocean outfall and our progress. But it has been a lot better since you've been here. When I do go visit our previous senator and he asks me about it, I've been able to report progress versus stalemate. And so I'm glad to see this item. I'm not glad that I didn't get it until, 20 seconds before, but I know I spoke to a number of people over the weekend about it and happy to move the item or second it, whatever you prefer, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And one thing that I want to mention too, I mean, and how we got here is obviously complicated and we're constantly dealing with our state and federal partners. But once this thing is done, we're going to be the largest reuse utility in the East Coast. So it really, I mean, the numbers are amazing. And for those of us who follow it, I think that what is being proposed is very forward thinking and really future proofs. So we're really appreciative of that. All right. Anybody have any questions? Okay. No questions. With that, so moved. Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? All right. Mr. Attorney, are there any other items?
Yes, Madam Chair, we still have 1G2 substitute, also a public hearing item. If I can read the title, I'll go ahead.
Please do.
1G2 substitute ordinance relating to private parking facility operators, amending section 2146 of the Code of Miami-Dade County, Florida, requiring certain signage in private parking facilities, imposing certain requirements for the issuance of private parking invoices, requiring certain appeal procedures for private parking invoices, requiring a 15-minute grace period at private parking facilities, prohibiting private parking facilities from selling or transferring any personal information obtained from a party using the private property for parking services, amending Section 8CC, providing civil penalties, providing severability inclusion in the code, and an effective date. That's 1G2 substitute public hearing item.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Higgins. Commissioner Steinberg's just making noise. Yeah.
We've done the public hearing. Am I able
We're going to open public hearing. We'll open public hearing. Is anyone interested in speaking on this item? Going once, going twice? With that, we will close public hearing. Do you have a comment, Commissioner Higgins?
Yeah, Kevin or Commissioner Cabrera, thank you very much for bringing this item because these people are really wretched. And so I appreciate this very, very much. I do have what I think is a friendly amendment. Some of these lots are very, very large, and your item, has signage kind of at the entrance. Matter of fact, I was at a site today just to kind of validate my perception. But once you go through the entrance, you're 300, 400 feet on the other side. This particular parking lot had 16 signs, all of which were quite large. I think it's important that any sign that they feel is important to put in their parking lot, right, because they're trying to collect money, that it has the same wording on it. So I think we have the amendment ready to go. It's a little short and sweet.
Commissioner Higgins moves to amend item 1G2 substitute to clarify that the signage size and content requirements set forth in section 21-46A of the code shall apply to all relevant signage on the premises.
So with your permission, I'd make that friendly amendment.
You're good with that? Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything else? All right. Moved as amended. Second. All those, we got a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Cohen Higgins? Commissioner Steinberg? Commissioner Cabrera? Vice Chairwoman Higgins? Chairwoman Regalado?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Attorney?
That's it for the agenda.
All right. Any issues, folks? All minds and hearts are clear. With that, we will adjourn. Thank you.
New terminals, new records, and a world-class experience for our cruise passengers. All 7.3 million of them this year that continues to get better all the time. And we are finalizing the construction of our shore power program at 5 terminals, which will allow up to 3 ships to turn off their engines at the same time while in port. This future-ready initiative will significantly reduce emissions, furthering commitment of both Port Miami and the cruise industry to sustainable practices. Port Miami remains the undisputed cruise capital of the world. The global gateway of the Americas saw over 1 million TEUs coming through the port last year, and the fruits and vegetables coming through Port Miami can reach 70% of the U.S. population in 1 to 4 days. And right behind them, apparel and textiles move in and out of the port with speed and efficiency through rail and the Port Miami Tunnel. Over 140 nations send goods through Port Miami, leading with Latin America and the Caribbean, followed by Asia, Europe, the Mediterranean, and Africa. New routes, new innovation, net zero initiatives, and workforce development. In collaboration with the Miami-Dade Innovation Authority, the port is actively seeking companies to develop smart technologies aimed at transforming cargo operations and driving sustainable growth, and help us ensure the port remains future ready. We are also helping to train the next generation of maritime workers, along with Miami-Dade County Public Schools